Geoff's Wonderland.
Yes, welcome back to the Wonderland, and look at you all there listening and stuff. Welcome. And my name's Geoff. I'm a musician. I'm also a songwriter, and I have a lot of thoughts. In the Wonderland, that's my head, folks. That's where the Wonderland is. I'm going to share some of them with you right now. Now, it's another beautiful day here, by the way, in the Black Forest of Germany, which is where I live now. When people think of the Black Forest, they think of a forest which is literally black. Well, that's not really the case. You see, the forest here is actually very green, and it was only called the Black Forest by the ancient Romans because in those days it was very dense and very dark, right? Not so dense these days, and therefore not so dark, but still, you know, when you look into it, you go, oh, it's pretty dark. So there it is. Now, what was not so dark and not so dense was the Gold Coast in Australia, which is where I grew up. And I was very lucky to grow up there because, you know, lots of sunshine and the beaches and so on. And we did seem to get a lot of rain and floods, though, when I was a kid, which at the time I had no problem with at all because I actually enjoyed watching the river creeping into the living room and not having to go to school. You know, I was a kid. Anyway, we got some interesting weather. The joys of childhood. Yes. I did hate the wind, though. Hated the wind because I'd be out riding my bike and I always figured the wind was out to get me because it didn't seem to matter where I was riding. The wind was blowing head on and I became convinced that it was doing this to spite me. Anyway, I now feel myself very fortunate once again to be living in a beautiful place in the southern part of Germany because I think it's what my mum would have called an undulating landscape area. Yes, undulating. Now, that word sounds a little bit too much like underpants for my liking, but there you go. And for those of you who don't know, undulating simply means kind of wave-like, which in this context means lots of hills and varying altitudes, although not exactly mountains. You don't really get that until you're into Switzerland or Austria, which aren't far away. But unlike the north of Germany, it's not flat. So we're also kind of protected from anything in the way of extreme weather. But you know what? I'm going to stop myself right there because we are not getting into the subject of weather because I did that a few weeks ago. And I do not want to repeat myself until I'm so far ahead with the episodes that nobody remembers or cares what I've already talked about. Okay, well, without any further ado, we're going to move into one of our favourite parts of the show. And yes, touche, it's theory time.
Yo,
You can't know what you
can't know.
I'm going to tell you what I think I know. I don't know what I know.
This is what I know.
Theory time.
And once again, welcome to Theory Time. Now, you might remember a few episodes ago on Theory Time, I touched on how good it'd be to know what famous people are really bad at in order to make ourselves feel better. Well, as is my wont, I have now concocted a concise but useful theory that's somewhat connected to that thought. Now, if somebody was to ask you, would you consider a successful life to be one in which everybody liked you? I wouldn't mind betting that a lot of you would instinctively say yes. And to be fair, I think that's reasonable because I think being liked or wanting to be liked is a very, very big part of the human instinct. Okay, so now consider this. Most of us feel so much better knowing that another person has failed miserably at something. Now, of course, the last thing you'll do is to say to your friend who has just failed miserably at something that you're happy about it. No, you'll pretend to be empathetic and sympathetic and sorrowful on their behalf and supportive because, in the words of the famous song, that's what friends are for. Meanwhile, your friend who has just failed at something miserably now feels good, or at least much better, because they know that you're in their corner, that you've got their back, that you're there for them. But, you know, let's cut the crap. We all feel so good when we see other people around us failing. And so I would like to suggest that if you want people to like you, then you must deliberately/apparently fail at everything possible. Because as the pop singer Morrissey once wrote, we hate it when our friends become successful. And so if you are seen to have failed, then no one is going to see you as a threat. And everybody will be supportive of you and be keen to be your friend. And so, my conclusion is failure is success.
This is what I know.
Theory time.
Yes, that's another edition of Theory Time under the belt. Now we're going to move right into the song of the day. Now, by way of explanation, for those of you who've not tuned into this show before, Song of the Day is where we take one of the songs off my new album, which is called Wherever We Go, There We Are, and which you can see on any streaming service, or hear. You can't really see it, but you can see it if you order the vinyl LP from geoffhealey.com, and that's spelled GeoffHealey.com. I have to spell that out because, you know, when people hear the name Geoff, they think Jeff, and that's not how I spell my name. Anyway, there it is. So, we're going to talk about one of the songs off the album, and that song is a little piece called Nothing More You Can Do. And it's basically about the fact that sometimes in life, lots of things happen around us, and we look around, we go, oh, that sucks, and that sucks, and that sucks. Well, guess what? You just got to suck it up. And that's pretty much what the song's about. So without any further ado, here it is, Nothing More You Can Do.
He put his legs upon the table, hands behind his head. He leaned right back in his chair as far as he was able. Just closed his eyes and then he smiled and then he said, son, sometimes there's nothing more that you can do.
Which, of course, is true. When you can't do nothing about it.
There's nothing more that you can do.
Can't do nothing about it. Just gotta roll with it.
He said that you can walk 100 miles, fake 100 smiles, turn yourself inside down. Give up everything you own, find yourself without a home, find yourself upside down. Sometimes there's nothing more that you can do.
But, you know, we do tend to get twisted out of shape when there's something in our lives that we can't control. But I think we get twisted out of shape because we can't control it. Yeah, there's a bit of unnecessary wisdom for you. Anyway, that song continues on, a few little twists and turns towards the end. But do take a listen to the album if you get a chance, because there's something on it for everyone, I would like to think. Anyway, moving right along to the next part of the show, and I can sense the anticipation. Yes, you're right, it's here at last. And of course, I'm talking about
Geoff's Thought of the Day.
I was thinking about something, I think it was the thought of the day. I think it was the thought of the day.
And a hearty welcome to Thought of the Day. Now, here is something I have not talked about. When I'm writing episodes for this podcast, I'm using the dictation function on my phone. Now, of course, this is a great idea in principle, but I'm sure most of us are aware how flawed phone dictation is and how it can make incredibly annoying mistakes by, if you like, mishearing words that we've said quite clearly. To be fair, it must be difficult for the developers of this technology to take into account so many different accents and voices whilst trying to correctly convert speech to text. So it's, still pretty amazing when you think about it. But a word of warning, if you're just starting out with phone dictation and you have more than one language installed on your phone, always look at what you've just dictated before you send it off, or you might just spend the next half an hour explaining to the person who has just received your message and completely misunderstood it that you're not illiterate or totally bonkers, and that you were simply trying to make use of available technology in order to expedite communications. In other words, of course, you're too frickin' lazy to write, couldn't be asked leaving an audio message, and you certainly didn't want to talk to them on the phone. What's really amusing, though, and I would encourage you to try this sometime if you've got a few minutes to spare and need a good laugh, is set your dictation settings to a language other than English, such as German, and then try dictating a message in English and then see what you end up with. Well, you'll need a little bit of ability in that other language to really get the most out of the humour potential in this situation, but I promise you, it is almost worth learning a second language for only this reason. But actually, even if you don't speak German, you could say the message in English and have the phone dictate it in German, and then when the text is delivered, put it through a translator and change it from German back to English, and then see what you get. Now, to prove my point, I've actually just taken the following phrase, which is this: "Hi there, Mark. I have just listened to the song, and frankly, I really enjoyed it, despite the lyrics being a bit confusing. However, I really like the music, and I will check out more of this artist on Spotify." Okay, so that's what I dictated into my phone with German dictation turned on. And this is what we end up with translated back into English. "Hi, Mark. Just listened to the song Justin, and I enjoyed it. Further Rapid Vegetable by Stop, however. I really likes the music, a nightmare. Is Albert, check out more on the attest to Spotify." Yes, I think sending that message to poor old Mark is definitely going to need a bit of explaining.
I think it was the thought of the day.
I definitely do think it was thought of the day, and thank you again for tuning in today. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please hit that subscribe button or the like button or the follow button, or leave a comment or drop me a line. I'd love to hear from you. If you've got something to say about anything at all regarding the show, or maybe you've got a suggestion, you can do that. I'd really enjoy it. And you can do that by writing to me at geoffhealy@yahoo.com. That's GeoffHealy @yahoo.com. Or you can go to my website, which is geoffhealy.com, same spelling obviously, and leave a chat message. And the beautiful thing about that is that I'll get it straight away. And if I'm not busy in the middle of a gig or whatever, I can answer you immediately, which I think is pretty wonderful. Yeah. Anyway, there you have it. So whoever you are, wherever you are, and however you are, take it easy. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And please do join me again next week for another ridiculous roller coaster ride through
Geoff's Wonderland. Gotta get back to Geoff's Wonderland. Gotta come back to Wonderland.